pleasure and privilege to be talking to you about the transformative power of AI. And at the same time, there are a lot of open challenges, right? So it's, again, an amazing time to be an AI researcher, practitioner, and so on, because on one hand, you see AI being pretty much used to transform every industry, every aspect of how the world is run. At the same time, there are many, many open questions, glaring weaknesses in some of these models, which give us researchers very, very exciting things to do. So I'll start with kind of talking about my organization's mission. I come from Google DeepMind, where our mission is to build AI responsibly to benefit humanity. And one of the aspects of that mission, which I believe has been underappreciated, especially in India, is this potential for AI to really transform science, significantly accelerate scientific discovery process. Often we think in terms of industries, fintech, health tech, whatever, ed tech, and so on. But if we think about the transformation you can achieve in science, that can have a much, much bigger and kind of a multi-industry impact. So let's start with this example of this year's Nobel Prize in Chemistry. I don't know how many of you watched or tracked who were the winners, right, of Nobel Prize in Chemistry. That's a sign of things to come. So one of the winners this year was this team from Google DeepMind, Demis Hassabis and John Jumper, for their work on AlphaFold. And just to give you, again, let me take you back to high school math, right, where we learned that proteins are the building blocks of life. And the second thing we learned is proteins are made up of these chains of amino acids. And these amino acids are represented through these letter strings. And what happens is they fold into a very distinct, each protein folds into a very distinctive shape, which gives it its properties, unique properties. Now, what shape will a given, whatever, protein take, given that string? That's been a long-standing scientific challenge. In fact, if we go back, let's say 10, 20 years ago, it used to take an entire PhD, about 5 years of research, before you uncovered the structure of a single protein. And that problem was effectively solved by this AlphaFold AI model, which now is able to predict these protein structures in roughly a second. So 5 years of what used to take 5 years is now being done in roughly a second. And in fact, this team, after they showed these very, very accurate predictions, where the community considered the problem as solved, they made the predictions of all 200 million proteins known to humankind freely available. They made AlphaFold available in open source. So you can think of 1 billion PhD years equivalent of research that was accelerated, done in less than a year, and made available to the research community. And today there are over 2 million researchers across the world who are using these predictions for a variety of applications, ranging from the obvious, things like drug discovery, to even designing specific kinds of enzymes that would make a protein biodegradable. So let me now come to the current era of these LLMs, so to speak. And of course, there are many, many models from OpenAI, Meta, Google, Anthropic, and so on. So I'll, of course, talk about Google, not that I want to do an advertisement, but this is the model A that I'm more familiar with. And B, I take genuine pride, because many, many aspects, and I'll show you, talk about those aspects of making these Gemini models really, really powerful, have come from my team based in Bangalore. So some of the unique capabilities that we have introduced through initially Gemini 1.5 about a year ago, and now more recently Gemini 2.0, I would say are these multimodality, long context, and agents. Let's start with multimodality and long context. If you can stop the video just a minute and just let me first introduce the context. So today, while the term LLM has become popular to describe these models, large language model, they are no longer just language models. They of course understand language, text, but they also understand speech. They also understand the visual part. And today you can have questions, right, prompts, which are very multimodal in nature, you can also, the other thing which Google introduced was this very long context window capability. So what does that give you? Effectively, so we announced this long context initially of 1 million tokens and then 2 million tokens available to all developers. What that means is that with 2 million tokens, you can take a 2-hour video, or you can take tens of hours of audio content, or dozens of textbooks, and all of those could be part of your input prompt that the model hasn't seen, let's say that data, and that can be part of your input prompt to ask the model a question. Or it could be in an enterprise setting, you could make some of your enterprise data be part of that input prompt, because you don't want your model, let's say, trained on your private enterprise data or your customers' data, but all of that need not go into the training of the model, but could be simply the input, which the model takes into account, right, to give you that personalized response. So let's look at this example where a 1-hour video, roughly a 45-minute video, has been fed to this AI Studio model, and it's asked this question. So there's a multimodal prompt where you have that drawing, you can see, of this kind of tank and water falling, and you ask the model this question: at what point in the video does this happen? And you can see that it finds the exact moment where that scene plays, right? And you can see that from this abstraction, the model was able to correlate it with the actual scene in the video where that happened, and able to kind of do this kind of, again, retrieval. So you can see these very, very powerful capabilities. And likewise, there are lots of other examples where you feed it a physics problem and it's able to not only come up with the solution, if you feed it the solution of that the learner has come up with, it'll catch what mistake the learner has made. So the application possibilities of these kinds of capabilities are now endless. If you think about personalized learning, right, which has been a pet problem that I've cared about a lot, it seemed like a distant dream, but now the dream of a personalized tutor available to each and every person on the planet, which has the entire world's information at its fingertips and is able to help that learner in a very personalized manner, it's now becoming possible. So very excited about these kinds of capabilities. The other thing that we announced were these agentic capabilities through Gemini 2.0, which have enabled some of these also experimental kind of products, so to speak, like Astra, which in fact already has been launched under the Trusted Testers program from Google. But unlike kind of prior generation, all of these chatbots, which would either communicate through a chat and later through voice, you can see that here this agent is communicating through the rich kind of pretty much 3D interface. So let's take a look at this agent.
Using native audio
Can we have the audio?
to switch languages as you speak.
Est-ce que tu peux me dire quelque chose d'intéressant à propos de ces lanternes?
Bien sûr, je peux vous parler des lanternes. Les lanternes que vous voyez font partie de la porte d'entrée de Chinatown à Londres. நிச்சயமாக இது லண்டனில் உள்ள Chinatown நுழைவாயில்.
So you simply kind of have this agent which is aware of the 3D surroundings, aware of the context, and you can have a chat with this, or whatever, conversation with this agent the way you would with a human agent, and you can again converse in your favorite language. You can switch languages from one to another, and it is responding in the language, right, that you last spoke. So a lot of these capabilities which are now becoming possible, and what we are excited about is ultimately we are moving towards these very, very powerful universal agents that are going to be available to each and every person on the planet to help us get access to information, help us with our learning journey, help us keep us healthier, and so on. So again, very, very exciting possibilities. And of course, one area where we have seen tremendous strides are in AI helping humans, right, with creativity tasks. If you go back 10 years back, most AI experts would have told you that, oh, AI would be used to automate mundane tasks. Creativity would remain this uniquely human endeavor. And now you have AI models really helping humans write very beautiful poems, help us create beautiful art, help us create music, as well as kind of now things like videos. So if you can express it, if you can think about, okay, where you want the model to help you, the model can help you generate. So I think we are again entering an era where an artist, aided by this AI models, can do a much richer kind of an exploration of this whole creative space, and ultimately come up with a lot higher level of creativity and so on more quickly with the help of these agents. We still believe in AI augmenting human creativity rather than thinking of it as a competition with the human creator. And again, a lot of work is being done also with, for instance, music artists, where you are now creating these models, where whatever comes out of this model, which has been trained on the content from this artist, is now attributable to this artist. So with that, let me come to at least my favorite topic, inclusive AI. How do we develop all of these AI models in a manner that's truly inclusive, that works for everyone, especially the hundreds of millions of people in India and billions of people in the world who have not previously been touched by AI for good reasons. So some of it starts with, of course, just access to information in the native language. So in fact, that has been kind of a long-standing challenge. I've always felt that people like you and I, right, people in this audience, we are the privileged ones. We understand English as a language, so we have information available at our fingertips. I've always thought about kind of that laborer's daughter in Chhattisgarh who doesn't have that same, whatever, level of access because she doesn't understand English. You want to enable her with access to information about the entire world at the same level as you and I in her own native language. How do we empower her? So our first baby steps were made early on, where about 3 years ago, our team created this model called Mural, which at that time provided the best coverage of, most extensive coverage of Indian languages. It covered 16 Indian languages at that time and has been used by many researchers. I challenged the team, let's cover all 22 scheduled languages. And I was very happy to see Partha Talukdar, who leads that team, come back and give me a course on Indian languages. He said, look, you're not being ambitious enough. So he told me there are 60 Indian languages which have over 1 million speakers each, and over 125 languages which have over 1 lakh speakers each. So he said, I want to build a model that understands each of those languages. And then we started also doing some systematic benchmarking. So our team, if we go back to the previous slide, we kind of, oops, I don't know why. So we did this benchmarking and we found, we covered 29 Indian languages and we saw significant gaps between our own model capabilities on English versus these 29 languages. Of course, there was some consolation that our models were doing better than competing languages, but for us, we are quite determined to ultimately close that gap, right, with languages like English, Of course, my dream eventually is to make our model do better on Hindi than even English, but for now I'll take, if at least it comes at the same level as English. So back to this endeavor to build a model that understands each of those 125 languages, which are spoken by at least 1 lakh people. The next thing Partha told me was that 72 out of those languages are zero corpus languages. That means there is zero known digital data on those languages. So think about it, languages spoken by millions of people, no web presence of these languages. In fact, we were talking about it earlier, Hindi is spoken by my native language, is spoken by roughly, by virtue of our population, 10% of the world's population roughly speaks Hindi. And the percentage of worldwide content which is in Hindi is, guess what? Ideally, it should be 10% of the world's content. Ideally, it should be even more than 10%, right? We should be overrepresented. But currently, it's 0.1% of the world's content is in Hindi. And likewise, so many of these Indian languages spoken by millions of people are simply not present on the web. And of course, we also know the same language is spoken in so many different ways. Hindi is spoken one way in Haryana, मैं तन्ने के कहूँ, and Punjabi in Punjab or UP, Bihar, and so on. So we have this saying, "Kos kos pe badle pani, char kos par vani." It inspired this project called Vani, where we have been collecting speech data from different corners of India and making it freely available to the entire community. All of you entrepreneurs, if you are a researcher, if you are a practitioner, you're welcome to make use of this data. So we made our eventual endeavor is to collect data from each and every one of the 773 districts of India. So we capture the full diversity of languages, dialects, accents in the country. We are running a bit behind, but we have made data from the first phase of this project collected from 80 districts freely available. It covers over 14,000 hours of audio data. It covers 59 languages, Indian languages. 15 of those 59 languages used to be zero corpus languages. So this data is the first known digital data for at least 15 of those languages. So as we continue the project, and we'll invite more collaborators to join us in this journey, because we are trying to do this for everybody. Make this a resource for everyone. We'd love to, again, see that. So again, I've been very happy to see, again, our team's work go into making models like Gemini work much better for Indian languages. This is just a demo to show how Gemini was several months ago. I really wanted to show a demo based on Gemini 2.0 Flash, where we have made very significant further improvements in tokenizer, overall quality of these models. But again, there's always that fear of demos not going well. But I'll show you this demo from a few months ago. But I'll encourage you to try out Gemini 2.0 Flash, which has my team's work that has gone into making it. We believe it's today the best model by far when it comes to handling Indian languages. So let's take a look at this of Gemini Live in action in Hindi.
मैं फाइनेंस डिपार्टमेंट में क्लर्क की पोस्ट के लिए जॉब ढूंढ रही हूँ. अभी मुझे असिस्टेंट अकाउंट मैनेजर की पोजीशन के लिए इंटरव्यू का इनवाइट आया है. मुझे उसी से जुड़ी आपसे कुछ मदद चाहिए.
वाह, इंटरव्यू के लिए बुलावा आना बहुत अच्छी बात है. इसका मतलब है कि उन्होंने आपका रिज्यूमे देखकर आप पर भरोसा जताया है. असिस्टेंट अकाउंट मैनेजर का काम क्लर्क के मुकाबले थोड़ा अलग होता है. आपको कंपनी के लिए आने वाले पैसे के लेन देन को संभालना होता है, बैंक स्टेटमेंट बनाए रखने हैं और खर्चों को ट्रैक करना होता है.
क्या आप मुझसे कुछ ऐसे सवाल कर सकती हैं जो शायद इंटरव्यू में पूछे जाएं?
हाँ, चलिए कुछ संभावित सवाल देख लेते हैं. सबसे पहले आपको ये समझना होगा कि असिस्टेंट अकाउंट मैनेजर की भूमिका क्या होती है. फिर आप अपनी पढ़ाई और पिछले अनुभव से जुड़े हुए जवाब सोच सकती हैं.
So where we are headed, of course, is that you'll see these kinds of conversations, not just in audio, right, but in full 3D kind of video with that ability to switch between languages, with this agent even being aware of the context, the surroundings, and so on, right? And becoming much more powerful. So we are pretty much already headed in that. So another thing which our team has pointed out is that it's not just enough for these models to understand different languages. We also need to understand different cultures. If we are responding to a user in Assam, I'll be the first to admit, our model, as well as any other model in the world, will actually come up with the response in a way in English, and then almost like translate that response into Assamese. How do we come up with the response rooted in the cultural context, right, of the user? That's an area where, again, our team has been highlighting those gaps, and we are doing a lot of very exciting work so that future versions, right, truly understand the cultural context. The other area where we have been working is over 40% of the households in India are depending on agriculture for their livelihood. And again, farmers are largely untouched by AI technology today. I was told, I was recently attending an event by Mint, and I learned that just the loans to farmers is something like a $550 billion market today. And most of it is dominated by informal sector. Very little of that is captured by banks, because most of the loans come from informal sectors, because for the banks, it's too cumbersome to assess the credit worthiness of the farmer whose farm may be several kilometers away, right, from the closest bank branch. So it's something like the speaker said $150 billion is the amount of profit that gets made annually in just loans to farmers, and completely kind of right now informal part of the economy. So we have built the first such model that, using satellite imagery analysis, can now start to identify field boundaries based on usage patterns, start to identify what crops are being grown and so on, so that you can build the base layers of a digital agri stack, right? Taking inspiration from the Aadhaar stack, right, which has transformed, right, the mobile payment scenario. It started with that base layer of Aadhaar ID to each individual. We are allowing a unique ID to be created for each farm, and then let the startups and other agri-tech players build the actual solutions, right, that will provide those loan, crop insurance solutions, as well as help the government run the subsidy programs in a much more data-driven manner. The other thing, of course, we have seen is, as these generative AI models have taken off in terms of adoption, we have seen two things go way up, right? One is data center energy consumption, and all of these deals being signed by generative AI providers with now nuclear power plants and so on, because you need now nuclear power plants to power a lot of these data centers. And other thing, of course, is NVIDIA stock. So nothing wrong with NVIDIA stock going up. I also have my own holding. But data center energy, we absolutely, for sustainability reasons, want to bring it down. So our teams have been, again, amongst the leading teams globally, I would say, anywhere in the world, who are at the forefront of developing a whole bunch of methods to make these large models very, very efficient. And again, I take a lot of pride in a lot of work, our work that has gone into like the Google 2.0, Gemini models, the Flash models, and so on. One of those many, many techniques that our team has innovated is called Matryoshka models, or matformers, where it is denoted pictorially. The name was inspired by Matryoshka dolls, which have these nested dolls, one inside the other. We build these models also in this nested manner, where you have the largest model, let's say, denoted by the largest model, which has increasingly, progressively smaller models embedded inside the same model. So now, if you have a complex query, solve this math problem, that can go to the biggest model because it needs that full power. If you have a moderately complex query, summarize this email for me, that can go to an intermediate size model. If you have a very simple query, who's the Prime Minister of India? Who's the CEO of Google? You don't need a large language model. It can go to a very, very small model and answer that question. So even doing this routing under the covers to let the task be served by the appropriate size model, which can bring tremendous savings in energy, computational costs, and so on, which in fact we are bringing to Gemini models. And of course, we also we recognize that ultimately all of these AI solutions will be built by partners, right? Not by us. So we've also been making both, and in some cases, right, those partners want to have control over their own kind of foundation models, right, that are used in the final solution. So we are also making these Gemma open models available. And in fact, our team has developed this methodology called CALM, which is a way to compose, let's say, the specialist model that you may want to build for your domain, let's say financial domain, with a generalist model like Gemma, and then compose them automatically to create a model that has the best of both worlds. The original models remain unchanged, but now the combined automatically composed model has the powerful, all of those knowledge and reasoning capabilities of the generalist model, as well as the superior domain capabilities, right, of the specialist model that you have produced. And again, looking forward to working with many more collaborators, right, to build solutions in learning, in agriculture, in health, and so on, right, to ultimately make things better. So with that, let me conclude that AI is already here and impacting every industry, the world at large. A lot of it has been enabled through now this rise of foundation models, which are, again, trained in this self-supervised manner using generative AI methodology. And it's just a truly amazing opportunity for each and every one of us, right, to utilize this power to make a difference to a problem that we care about. Whether you care about health or any particular aspect of health, or you care about learning, and learning is going to become far more important, right? As AI starts to disrupt everything, lifelong learning is going to become a necessity, right? It's already been a necessity. I mean, whatever I learned in computer science, I mean, when I did my BTech in computer science, when I signed up for BTech in computer science, I had never seen a computer. That's how old I am. And again, if I'd stopped learning, right, with whatever I learned in my whatever BTech and then master's and PhD, I would have been outdated, right, a long time ago. So each and every one of us has had to learn, but in the future, it's not just the technologists. I think every human on the planet will have to engage in lifelong learning. So these are, again, truly exciting times where through these very, very powerful technologies, our ability to build extremely powerful and meaningful solutions is going to be boundless. So let me stop with this video that अब जो होगा गजब होगा.
जो सोचा न था वो सब होगा, जो पहले न हुआ वो अब होगा, जो अब होगा गजब होगा. समझेंगे मिनटों में दुनिया की बातें, जो भी हमारा मन होगा, और अल्फाजों से जादू दिखाना हर किसी में दम होगा. तरक्की का प्याला लबालब होगा. एक अकेला हजारों की मदद होगा. और उंगलियों को ऐसे पर लगेंगे, काम नहीं करतब होगा.
आज हम बनाएंगे मेरा पर्सनल फेवरेट अचारी आलू टिक्का.
हर जगह पे तू जाहिर होगा, हर जुबान में तू माहिर होगा. और चाहे जितने भी हो फासले, चैन की तू सांस ले. बुरी नजर पे तेरा कहर, दिन दोपहर हर शब होगा। और पहले ही भांप लेंगे मर्ज कि क्या और कब होगा, कुछ ऐसा अजब होगा। गूगल AI, सोच बनाओ सच चाहो जब, जो अब होगा गजब होगा।
So I think we are really blessed to be living in these very interesting times. And if you are impressed with this, you haven't seen nothing yet. Ab hoga, gazab hoga. Thank you.